Here are 10 things I learned from a continuous glucose monitor. You might have seen recently in the news last month in March 2024 when the FDA cleared Dexcom with the first ever over-the-counter continuous glucose monitor. This means that people now without diabetes, or basically anyone, can get access to these CGMs and learn more about their glucose levels and get personalized health. I tried one out for a month earlier this year, and here's what I learned and why it might be worth you checking it out. So I signed up for Levels Health, but there are plenty of other providers out there that provide this service. I really wanted to better understand my metabolic health. Now, overall, I feel fine, but I'm 43 now. My speed and my endurance weren't where they used to be. And so I just wanted to kind of find out what should I be doing to maybe get back to the optimal levels of where I used to be. And I also wanted to know, are there any specific foods I'm eating that really spike my glucose and push me down a path of poor health without me realizing it? So much better to catch that now than when there's an actual problem. So when I signed up for Levels, I had to submit a few health questions and technically get approval, similar to like a prescription from a licensed physician, to be eligible for the CGM. Again, this is changing now that the FDA has approved this as over-the-counter. After waiting about 24 hours, I was approved, and then I had to decide which monitor to get. You see, Levels and most of these other software companies, they don't actually manufacture the hardware. So I had a choice of either the Abbott Freestyle Libre or the Dexcom. And I'll be honest, it really wasn't very clear which device to select, and I had to do a lot of my own Google searching to figure out which one would be better for me. For anyone without diabetes, the Dexcom 7 and the Freestyle Libre 3, they're honestly very similar and both meet the needs of what you're looking for to get more information. So on the one hand, you could have a monitor that scans in real time. Sometimes they pull the API every 15 minutes. Either way, it's probably fine. So I chose the Freestyle Libre 3 from Abbott. This means I had to also download the Abbott app in addition to the Levels app, and there's a connection with an API to connect those two data syncs. I ended up paying $199 plus $10 shipping for the two CGM devices, which each have a 14-day lifespan. So in total, you get a full month's worth of data, and then another $40 for a 1-month Levels digital membership. So after ordering all this, about 4 days later, I received the package of the monitors. I open the box, I go out to the sensor, and there's this massive, at least in my head, looking needle sticking out that I was supposed to jab myself in the back of my arm. I'm ashamed to admit I was a little hesitant and needed my wife to help put on that first monitor. But trust me, putting on a continuous glucose monitor doesn't hurt at all. In fact, you barely notice it when it goes onto your skin and totally forget it's even there over time. So now it was time to test. How does food, exercise, and sleep affect my glucose specifically? Again, my top goal was to identify those foods that dramatically spike my glucose. And what's awesome about CGMs and why they're getting us closer to personalized medicine is all of us react differently to different foods. This is honestly probably the easiest way to customize our own diet. So, and to be clear, it's totally okay when those glucose spikes happen once in a while. But doing this all the time is what overworks our pancreas to constantly produce insulin, and our cells won't be able to take in all the glucose. So instead, it goes to our liver, it goes to our fat storage, we gain weight, we become insulin resistant, all kinds of metabolic problems. So in terms of goals, I was trying to figure out what I wanted in terms of the results. And what Levels says is you want your fasting glucose to be below 85, and that's after 8 hours of any meal. And ideally, you never want your glucose above 110. Or you never want it to spike more than 30 milligrams per deciliter. So if you're at 90, you never want to be above 120. Ideally, the perfect range is about 72 to 110 throughout the day. So here are 10 things I found out specifically for me wearing a CGM. Certain carbs matter. Number 1, rice and chips. Tortilla chips are my kryptonite. I love them, but they spike my glucose higher than anything else I ate for the whole month. And I don't eat much gluten, but our Green Chef, the dinner service we get, has a lot of meals with white rice, which also really spikes my glucose. Number 2, you shouldn't eat carbs by themselves. Here's what's crazy. When I put guac on those chips, it didn't spike my glucose much at all. The fiber and fat from the avocado really makes a huge difference in keeping my glucose stable. And the same thing with the rice. If it's a small percentage of my dinner and I had, say, broccoli with lots of fiber and a protein, then the glucose stayed in line. Number 3, and this was really interesting, green bananas. I was pumped that my morning breakfast smoothie didn't spike my glucose, but there was actually a measurable difference if the bananas were slightly underripe than if they had brown spots. It's crazy, but the sugar does really change as bananas ripen. The green bananas are tough to eat, I know, but that fiber and low sugar content is worth it, and just hide it in the smoothie and you can't tell. Number 4, you really have to be careful what you drink. I mostly drink water and green tea. I was feeling pretty tired, and I started drinking what I thought were no sugar energy drinks, yet they still seem to spike my glucose. I'm still figuring out how to learn why, but in the meantime, I'm sticking with my green tea. Not only that, how much food matters. My go-to dessert is a few squares of dark chocolate from the freezer. I always try to get at least 20% cacao. And it normally didn't really spike my glucose, except on some of the nights I decided to eat half the bar. Then I did notice a noticeable spike. So again, it was the quantity that really mattered there. Next that was interesting is how fast you eat. Sometimes I'm really hungry, and by dinner, other times I'm rushing to eat with the kids. Either way, when I eat too quickly, I saw a much bigger glucose spike. And it makes sense because you're overloading your body with glucose in a much shorter, compact time frame. Even slowing down on something like your smoothie was so key. After a run or workout, I sometimes absolutely famished and I down my smoothie in a few gulps. But this also seemed to significantly increase my glucose. Your digestive system starts in your mouth. And they suggest even something like a smoothie you should try to chew. At least that's what many of the experts advise. I didn't get that far, but now I'm trying to at least take 10 to 15 minutes to finish my smoothie to kind of normalize that glucose intake. I also learned a lot about working out. Exercise does increase your blood glucose, but it's very normal and you shouldn't worry about it because it'll come right back down after you're done. On those days I did exercise, especially if I was in zone 5, say a 45-minute HIIT style or boot style workout, my glucose was actually stable almost all day regardless of what I ate. It just shows how important exercise is to helping us manage our health throughout the whole day. And finally, getting sleep. I definitely saw bigger swings up and down on days I got bad sleep than on days that I was able to get those 7 to 9 hours and feel really good. One last bonus note I should point out to my personal experience. I found out that around 4 a.m., my blood glucose dips into the hypoglycemic level, below 70 milligrams per deciliter. Now, for most people, this quick dip isn't a big health risk, but it definitely wakes me up, and then I have trouble getting back to sleep at 4 a.m. So inevitably, I end up feeling tired, and then the whole cycle repeats itself where I don't eat as well and the like. Now, the reason I wake up is because when the glucose plummets, we release adrenaline. We go into fight or flight mode, which boosts our heart rate. Now, why is that? Well, everyone's different, but data suggests that about 41% of non-diabetics will go below that level of 70 milligrams per deciliter. And it's common at night, especially during REM. And that makes sense because our brain is really active during that stage of sleep, and our brain is using a ton of energy, and so it's depleting our glucose storage in our liver. I actually did find a quick solution. One way to solve this problem is to make sure you don't skip dinner and maybe try having a spoonful of honey before you go to bed. The honey restores your liver glycogen and prevents that low blood glucose. And it also turns down ghrelin, the hormone that tells us we're hungry, so it's been shown to help us improve our sleep. So if you're like me and struggle to stay asleep at night, maybe try some honey. So in summary, for everyone, I'd recommend adding fat, fiber, and protein to those empty carbs, like guac on chips, nut butter on apples, and meat, broccoli, and butter on your pasta. Also, slow down. Don't always eat on the go. Take the time to enjoy your food and really taste it, savor it, identify all the flavors. Maybe focus on the conversation with the person you're having dinner with instead of just rushing to clean your plate. Well, that's what I learned. If you decide to give a CGM a try, would love to hear what you find out. Send any notes to us here at team@thrive25.com, and we'll share that out with our community so we can continue to educate everyone here on getting to their best metabolic health for their overall health and longevity.